Did you know that, according to the Bible, ghosts do not actually exist? Jesus directly reveals this truth to his followers. But before we dive in, welcome to God's Word Unmasked, where we peel back the layers of biblical history to reveal hidden truths and fascinating stories. If you enjoy our content, consider subscribing, and we promise to keep bringing you engaging and enlightening videos. To understand why ghosts do not exist according to the Bible, we first need to define what ghost actually means. When people talk about ghosts, they often picture the spirits of dead people returning to the world of the living. These so-called ghosts are often thought to haunt places or people, maybe seeking revenge or trying to communicate unfinished business. This idea is deeply ingrained in popular culture. But according to the Bible, these ghosts do not actually exist. But if that's true, then where exactly do people get the idea that ghosts exist and that we can communicate with our dead relatives? To help us understand, let's rewind to the only notable story in the Bible, which is of Saul and the witch of Endor. Just so we don't take up more time, I'm going to summarize this story. According to the Bible, at this point in the narrative, King Saul's reign over Israel is coming to an end. He has fallen out of favor with God due to his disobedience, particularly his failure to fully carry out God's commands regarding the Amalekites. The prophet Samuel, who had anointed Saul as king and served as God's messenger to him, has died. Israel mourned his passing, and Saul is left without his spiritual guide, the Philistines. Israel's enemies are gathering for war against Israel. Saul is terrified of the impending battle and desperately seeks guidance. In his desperation, Saul seeks answers from God through dreams and prophets. However, God does not respond to Saul in any of these ways, symbolizing God's departure from Saul due to his continued disobedience. Since God is silent, Saul, in desperation, seeks out a medium, even though he had previously expelled all mediums and spiritists from the land. In obedience to God's law, Saul disguises himself and visits a woman in Endor who practices necromancy. This is pretty much black magic. Saul asks the medium to bring up the spirit of Samuel. The medium is initially fearful, thinking it might be a trap since Saul had banned such practices. But Saul reassures her, promising she will not be punished. The spirit appears. The medium reportedly sees a spirit rising from the earth, described as an old man wearing a robe. Saul perceives this as Samuel. The apparition, identified as Samuel, delivers a grim prophecy to Saul. He tells Saul that God has turned against him, confirming that the kingdom will be taken from him and given to David. Samuel also predicts Saul's defeat in the upcoming battle and that Saul and his sons will die the next day. Now, the big question most people have after hearing this story is, was it really Samuel? We can see that Saul believed this was Samuel. In fact, when Saul asked the witch how the spirit looked, she said, "An old man wearing a robe is coming up." But let's be honest, this description could be anyone. Saul's decision to consult a medium, directly violating God's commandments, is seen as a final act of disobedience that seals his fate. This is why many scholars and theologians believe the spirit could possibly have been a demonic spirit impersonating Samuel, as necromancy is condemned in the Bible. However, some argue that God allowed Samuel to appear to deliver a final judgment against Saul. God has even done this before, according to the book of Adam and Eve. This means that if God has not allowed you to interact with a dead relative, then it is most likely a demonic spirit trying to deceive you. This was the only instance in the Bible that this had actually happened, and it is still being researched on whether this was a demonic spirit or Samuel himself. But let's dive into the truth. The truth is, when I tell most people that the ghosts of their dead relatives do not exist upon the earth, they usually condemn me. But the Bible is very clear about the ability of the dead to interact with the living. For starters, the Bible strictly forbids any attempts to communicate with the dead or engage in practices that involve spirits. Deuteronomy 18 states,
"There shall not be found among you anyone who makes his son or his daughter pass through the fire, or one who practices witchcraft, or a soothsayer, or one who interprets omens, or a sorcerer, or one who conjures spells, or a medium, or a spiritist, or one who calls up the dead. For all who do these things are an abomination to the Lord."
Honestly, this verse makes it clear that trying to contact the dead or engaging with dead human spirits is strictly forbidden. The Bible labels such practices as detestable to the Lord. This isn't just a casual warning, it's a serious command that shows how God views the idea of interacting with ghosts. In Ecclesiastes chapter 9, the Bible even gives us a straightforward answer about the state of the dead. King Solomon states,
"For the living know that they will die, but the dead know nothing, and they have no more reward, for the memory of them is forgotten. Also their love, their hatred, and their envy have now perished. Nevermore will they have a share in anything done under the sun."
Solomon goes further to explain that the dead no longer have any involvement in the things that happen under the sun. This phrase, "under the sun," is a recurring theme throughout Ecclesiastes and refers to everything that happens on earth, in the realm of the living. Solomon emphasizes that the dead have no part in earthly matters anymore. Their emotions, actions, and existence on earth have ceased entirely. When Solomon says, "the dead know nothing," he is making it clear that those who have died are no longer conscious or aware of what happens in the world of the living. Their memory, love, hatred, and envy all perish with them. They no longer participate in life or influence events in the earthly realm, which dispels the common notion that the spirits of dead people, what some might call ghosts, linger around and interact with the living. Hopefully, that makes a bit of sense. In the spirit realm, the dead might know a few things, but when it comes to the earthly realm, the dead pretty much have no clue what is going on since they are no longer on this side. Pause. Do you want to read the Book of Giants? Or the Book of Adam and Eve? Maybe even the early life of Jesus? Lucky for you, we have prepared a PDF file filled with thousands of apocryphas and helpful resources. Obviously, you can do this research yourself, but why work hard when we got you covered? Check the link in the description. Also, don't forget to subscribe. Let's return to the video. Okay, so now the question is, if we can't actually see ghosts, who most of us believe to be dead relatives, then what exactly do we see? Luckily, the Bible has an answer for that. The Bible often uses the term spirit rather than ghost, and these spirits are not the souls of deceased people returning to haunt the living. Instead, the Bible identifies these spirits as either angels or demons, spiritual beings that interact with the physical world in various ways. Let's start by understanding that in the Bible, spirits can fall into two broad categories. Angels. These are the messengers and servants of God, sent to protect, guide, and deliver His messages. Demons. These are fallen angels, spiritual beings that rebelled against God and now seek to deceive and harm humanity. This means that if you have interacted with something that we call a ghost, it is most likely not a dead relative. Instead, it's either a messenger sent by God or a demonic force working against God. If you are apart from God, you are more susceptible to demonic forces, just like Saul could have been. First, let's talk about angels. Angels are the messengers and servants of God, sent to protect, guide, and deliver His messages to humans. Sometimes the Bible might describe encounters with these angels as encounters with spirits, or what people might think of as ghosts. In fact, in the book of Hebrews, Paul describes angels as ministering spirits. He stated,
"Are they not all ministering spirits sent forth to minister for those who will inherit salvation?"
King David also describes angels as spirits when he stated that God
lays the beams of His upper chambers in the waters, who makes the clouds His chariot, who walks on the wings of the wind, who makes His angels spirits, His ministers a flame of fire.
This verse highlights that God makes His angels spirits, emphasizing their spiritual nature, and His ministers as flames of fire, symbolizing their power and purity. One compelling example of an angel interacting with a human is the angel Gabriel, who was sent by God to a young virgin named Mary in the town of Nazareth. Gabriel announced to Mary that she had been chosen to conceive and give birth to Jesus, the Son of God.
Do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God. And behold, you will conceive in your womb and bring forth a son, and shall call his name Jesus.
So it is 100% possible for people to interact with spiritual beings in the real world, as God himself can send them as messengers to accomplish his will. If someone ever told you they might have seen a ghost, most likely it could have been an angel or another spiritual being sent by God, but definitely not a dead relative trying to interact with them. According to the Bible, this is not godly. On the other side of the spiritual spectrum, the Bible also speaks of demons, fallen angels who rebelled against God and now seek to deceive, harm, and possess humans. These demons are referred to as unclean spirits and are often involved in causing great distress to people. In fact, the book of Enoch explains to us exactly how some of these unclean or evil spirits came to inhabit the earth. If you remember correctly, during the days of Jared, there was much uncleanness occurring, and God himself even states,
Now it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves of all whom they chose. There were giants on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. Those were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown.
According to Enoch, when the fallen angels, also known as the Watchers, came down to earth, they created offsprings known as giants and taught men forbidden knowledge. This knowledge led humanity astray, turning their focus away from God and toward practices that are considered sinful, including witchcraft and attempts to communicate with the dead. One of the leaders of these fallen angels, Semjaza, specifically taught humanity the art of enchantments and root cuttings. The book of Enoch states,
Semjaza taught enchantments and root cuttings, Armaros the resolving of enchantments, Barakijal taught astrology, Kokabel the constellations, Ezekiel the knowledge of the clouds, Arachiel the signs of the earth, Shamsiel the signs of the sun, and Sariel the course of the moon.
Now these teachings laid the foundation for many of the dark arts, including the idea of contacting the dead. This directly contradicts God's commandments and is why the Bible warns so strongly against engaging in these practices. The idea of talking to dead relatives likely stems from these ancient influences, which were intended to lead people away from God and towards dangerous spiritual practices. In fact, after the Watchers had taught man forbidden knowledge, they produced many offsprings known as giants, and God did not obviously like what the fallen angels were doing, and humans were dying left and right due to the giants. So before the flood, the Watchers asked Enoch to speak to God on their behalf, since they were unable to reach God themselves. God cursed the fallen angels and their generation. Pay close attention, because God told Enoch to tell the Watchers,
Now the giants who have been born of spirit and of flesh shall be called upon earth evil spirits, and on earth shall be their habitation. Evil spirits shall proceed from their flesh, because they were created from above. From the holy Watchers was their beginning and primary foundation. Evil spirits shall they be upon earth, and the spirits of the wicked shall they be called. The habitation of the spirits of heaven shall be in heaven, but upon earth shall be the habitation of terrestrial spirits who are born on earth. The spirits of the giants shall be like clouds, which shall oppress, corrupt, fall, contend, and bruise upon earth. They shall cause lamentation. No food shall they eat, and they shall be thirsty. They shall be concealed, and shall not rise up against the sons of men and against women, for they come forth during the days of slaughter and destruction.
God declares that the Watchers will be punished for their transgressions. Their once heavenly existence is now corrupted. and they are condemned to a state of eternal torment. Their offspring, the Nephilim, are also cursed. The spirits of the Nephilim, after their physical bodies die, become evil spirits on the earth. These spirits will cause harm and destruction among humans, as they are born from both flesh and spirit. The passage explains that these evil spirits will remain on earth, leading people astray and causing turmoil. Even in the book of Mark, when Jesus was performing his miracles, one of these demons was cast out. In Mark chapter 5, Jesus encounters a man possessed by many demons. This man lived among the tombs and could not be restrained, even with chains. The Bible states,
And when he had come out of the boat, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit who had his dwelling among the tombs, and no one could bind him, not even with chains. When he saw Jesus from afar, he ran and worshipped him. And he cried out with a loud voice and said, What have I to do with you, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I implore you by God that you do not torment me. For he said to him, Come out of the man, unclean spirit. Then he asked him, What is your name? And he answered, saying, My name is Legion, for we are many.
In this story, the unclean spirits or demons within the man recognize Jesus immediately and fear his power. These demons are spiritual beings, but unlike angels, they are evil and seek to destroy rather than help. When people encounter such malevolent spirits, they might mistake them for ghosts. But the Bible clarifies that these are not the spirits of dead people, but fallen angels causing harm. In conclusion, if you think of ghosts as the spirits of deceased relatives returning to finish unfinished business, or if you engage in activities like using a Ouija board, it's important to understand that the entities you're contacting are not human spirits or the souls of dead relatives. If these spirits are not angels sent by God to guide you, then they are likely demonic forces. Hopefully you were able to learn something new. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. We will see you in our next video.